an entity like UJ's, which has had over 30 years experience in this space, will bring in the necessary amount of expertise, bring in the necessary client set that will help grow our insurance business.
Well, let's take a deeper look into these stories that made headlines this week. And I'm now joined by Ken Gishinga, who is our resident analyst. And many thanks, Ken, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Abi.
And just in line with the last item we've just seen on the news around I&M Bank buying into UJ's, what's the in-feel about this when it comes to why is the bank moving towards the insurance business right now?
Well, Abi, I'd tell you that the insurance business is a very complicated business. It involves managing risk. And traditionally, banks have tried to do it internally and realize the complexity is quite difficult. So the new thinking in the industry right now is why can't we work with people who have thought leadership in that area, and let's partner with them as opposed to building a whole new circle.
All right. And still linked to this, of course, the insurance industry is yet to scratch actually the surface.
Right.
We are seeing a penetration of under 4%. For I&M Bank, was it a strategic move for them?
I think it's an extremely strategic move. If you look, for example, like the banking sector, what Equity Bank has done in the banking sector, no company has done that in the insurance sector. That lack of innovation, I think, has been one of the biggest talking points for the last decade. And I think this is what I&M needs. People who have a trusted track record of delivering quality insurance products at the right price. I think for them, this could be a real game changer.
Speaking about game changers, we've seen news of Tuskys sort of bailing out, actually bolting out of the deal with Nakumatt. Where does this perhaps leave the retail store, which had seen some hope with Tuskys coming on board to run some of its stores and sort of assist with the debt issues around Nakumatt?
I think everybody's disappointed, really. I think a lot of people are hoping that Tuskys would come in and sort of pick up from where Nakumatt left. And you remember, Nakumatt is the anchor tenant in so many prime malls in, not just in Nairobi, not just in Kenya, in the East African region. So a lot of people are hoping that transition would be very smooth, but I think it's going to be quite a messy affair.
So is it too early to say that it's all quits for Nakumatt, or there's still some hope for them?
Well, Nakumatt has a very big brand. I mean, it's one of the most respected brands in the region. For me, the fact that it can't attract private equity into its business, for me, that's one of the things that I've never quite understood, because you'd expect a big Walmart kind of retailer would come in and say, hey, this is our entry into the Kenyan market. But the fact that nobody's knocking on the door, for me, it shows that there's a lot more that meets the eye.
All right. And looking at the bigger picture, when we talk about other big news we've seen this week, Ken, of course we did see the Makini group of schools topping the headlines where they're selling off the chain of schools. Perhaps, was this something Nakumatt should have considered before we delve deeper into the Makini issue?
I think they should have considered that. I think, for me, one of the biggest challenges that Kenyan businesses have is their inability to attract foreign capital. And if you look at private equity in East Africa, it's a fraction of what it is in Nigeria or in South Africa. And that's one of the things that just puzzles me, for instance. So that the fact that Makini was able to bring in some South Africans on board shows that there is a process that can be followed. But for me, I think our capital markets are still not as vibrant as they could be. I mean, if you look at the American market, in the last 3 months, 44 IPOs have been done in the States. This week they did Spotify. In Kenya, the last time we saw an IPO, it's been almost 2 years. So for me, I think there's still a lack of vibrance and innovation, and I think that's the kind of capital that would be needed to save the Uchumis, the Nakumats of this world.
All right. And still staying with the Makini issue. Now, we do not know how much so far
Right.
the deal is worth.
Right.
In your estimation, how would it pan out, especially when it comes to once the deal is done?
Right.
What are we likely to see by the new management and, of course, the people who have made a cool deal?
Right.
Are they looking further to perhaps reinvest in education, or what would be the ideal route to take?
Right. Well, I think if you really think about it, it's for Makini, it's almost like a Kenyan brand that's been there for decades and has that Kenyan emotional connection. Personally, my gut feeling was they should have held on to it for much longer. But obviously, there are good reasons for selling. I think what they told us was that Mary Okello is going to be a multi-million, in dollar terms. So it's a cool deal. But I think from a broader perspective, I think when you look at the African business space and you compare it with the Asian business space, where business is kept in over many generations, I would love to see Africans exploring that model. Just the other day, we were covering the new German beer that's coming into the Kenyan market. They have been in it for 9 generations. So I think there's a story to be told about maintaining assets within families. But you're right, the time that you want to exit, it's fantastic when you have options where you can make a cool profit and reinvest in other forms of education. I like. Yeah.
So when does an investor know what is the best time to exit? Because this is a big issue in not only Kenya, but even in Africa, where we see families running a business. When it is handed over to the next generation, there's mismanagement. Eventually, the company is sold off, and it's nothing but a former shadow of itself.
Well, there's no formula. If the generation following has a passion for running the business, then I think they should be given every opportunity to continue. But often what happens is sometimes the children of the founder maybe want to take a different direction in career terms. So that's a nice, a wonderful time to exit. So it's always a mixed bag. Then there's also issue of ability to scale. Sometimes family-owned businesses don't have the kind of capital they'll need to scale up. And that's where you get sort of like what happened to Java, an injection from ECP, and you blow up and become a big thing. So it's a mixed bag of thinking around it.
All right. Do you also feel that some of the, I've actually seen Big Square, one of the food joints, is also angling towards expanding its footprint in the country from the current under four outlets. And what sort of aspects should companies be focusing on when it comes to attracting external capital towards expanding?
I think it's all about the business opportunity. If you feel the aggregate demand for your goods and services is real, investors will come knocking on the door. But we have to be careful. That's what Nakoma did. I mean, they expanded in the last few years. So there's an assessment of, can we manage the risk of scale? Because the bigger you become, the more risks that you have to sort of like manage. Do we have the capacity, risk management? And for me, when I think about the risk management in the industry, I don't see the credentials that you'd normally expect to find with the risk managers. So for me, I think it's something that has to be done with a lot of